Now, Super Korean, that moniker. Did
Yeah.
did you embrace it from the start, or was it something that you kind of learned to
Oh,
love? Dennis,
right.
thank you, Dennis, for your time today, man. I see the background. You're in a beautiful city. Where are you? Let's start off with that.
I'm in Vancouver, BC, Canada. So it's where I grew up, and it's home.
All right. Now, how have you been doing, man? It seems like you've been running a gym, and do you have any fighters that you're bringing up out there?
I do. I had my last fight in 2012, and since then, I've just been coaching. You know, trying to make kind of like the new generation of fighters. Whether it's jujitsu or MMA. I don't just train fighters. I train regular people as well. It's my way of still being in touch with martial arts. Just because I stopped competing doesn't mean that I stopped being a martial artist. I think that's something that I'll always be. And yeah, that's what I do now. Fighters and just training. Yep.
Of course, man. Contributing to the art, man. That's what it's about.
That's it. Giving back.
Exactly. This interview is for Korean media. When was the last time you had any type of interaction with the Korean media?
Oh, it was a long time ago. The last one would be, I can't even remember. It would probably uh, maybe 8 years ago. I want to say like
Wow.
2012 for my last fight. Maybe, yeah, around there. I would say, yeah. Oh no, sorry, because I came to Korea. I had a gym over there in 2014, so maybe be around then.
Mhm.
That's it. Yeah. So at least like 5 6 years.
Whenever you go to Korea, it seems like they always are interested in what you're doing and how you're doing, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's I always feel very welcome in Korea. It's amazing since day one. So it really touches my heart every time.
There are many Korean fans out there that are curious about your career, and they want to know is, why did you suddenly stop competing in 2012 after at least fighting twice a year?
Well, I mean, I was at the end of my career. You understand? It was remember I had my first fight in 1998, right? So 2012, that's 14 years of fighting and a lot of fighting. It takes its toll on the body, and not only that, just mentally. After a while, you don't have the same motivation that you had when you were younger. You don't have that same drive, that need to always prove yourself and want to improve, right? And in a sport like fighting, that can be dangerous. Like if you play soccer or football or baseball, once you start to not care that much, okay, maybe you're not in the starting lineup, you don't score as many goals. In fighting, you get beat up bad. It's dangerous. So I thought that it was time to kind of stop and focus on other things in my life.
Was that a difficult decision to make?
It wasn't a difficult decision to make. It was a difficult transition, rather, right? Um, you got to understand when you're doing something for so long, your sole purpose in life, your only existence, your only reason for existence is that thing, which was training and fighting. All of a sudden, it's gone. It can be a little hard to get used to. There can be some confusion in your mind. Some people get depressed for it. Some people never go back to it. It's an adjustment period. That's for sure, right?
You've seen a lot of guys that probably many fans think should retire, but they don't, and they continue fighting. You
Yep.
understand that, right?
I get it, man. I get it. Nobody wants to. First of all, if you're a fighter, you love fighting. It's fun. Like
Mhm.
not just fighting, but the winning and the training, the whole lifestyle. Just telling people you're a fighter, training, not having a regular job. And it's an awesome thing. Only people who have done it will know what I'm talking about. It's a cool thing. And there's also the realization that okay, I've been doing this for so long, I haven't been doing anything else. What else am I going to do? Not everybody likes to teach. I'm lucky. I feel like I'm a naturally good teacher and I like coaching. Some people, they don't. They don't like it at all. They don't have the patience. They will never do it. So it can be tough. It can be a tough. It's literally it's an existential question for a lot of fighters.
Yeah, definitely. You know, do you ever, miss being a fighter? Because you are a coach, so you're very, well connected to the fighters. So
Yeah.
does your blood boil sometimes when you watch fights and you're like, oh,
It does, but it doesn't. And I get this question all the time, honestly. And I'll tell you what, I miss some things like the fighting, the winning. I miss it a little bit, but I don't miss the training all the time. Like my body, because I would have to do it now. So if I were to be a fighter now, there's no way I would be able to train all day, every day, 5, 6, 7 days a week for like a couple months for a fight. It's hard. So now I still train regularly, but only when I want to and at the pace that I want to. I have a lot more control about my life.
now let's go back to the past, man, because that's what a
Sure.
lot of people love to talk about with you. Uh, let's talk about Korea 2004 when you first went over there to participate in Spirit MC. What do you remember the most about just landing in South Korea?
Um, well, I mean, a very important part of that trip was I hadn't seen my father in a long time, so that was a very, very, something that was very close to my heart, right? So him and I reconnected. I had one of my brothers, Tommy, with me as well. So that was really cool, and then just, because you got to remember, I'd already been fighting for a long time around then, right?
Yeah.
So I would go and fight. People treat you professionally. You fight, you win, you don't win, whatever, and then you go home. It's a job. But when I went to Korea, it was different. There was a different connection with the people and with the promoters. I really, I just felt like it was just like it was something that it was fitting together. It really felt like that.
But
It
it's
was
still
more than
yeah.
a job at that point, right? Yeah.
But it still must have felt like a unknown world. I kind of myself, I grew up in the States, and then going back to Korea, it was different. What was the most surprising part about the Korean culture at that time for you?
We loved it. Oh, my brother, like it was Seoul. We were in Seoul. It was so huge. The buildings. Then we went to Dongdaemun. We went to Itaewon. We went walking around in Gangnam because we're jet lagged, right? So we would wake up at like 4 a.m. We can't sleep, so we're walking around at 5 a.m. in Gangnam on Tehran Row. There's nobody in the streets. It's like, have you seen the movie I Am Legend?
Yeah.
Remember when he's walking in the streets and New York is empty? It was like that. Just only taxis driving around. And it was really cool, man. Going to the mall, meeting people. Like the food obviously was amazing. Like we loved it. It was really cool. Just the whole experience, and then to be able to fight at the same time. And, it was amazing. It's, yeah.
Are there any Korean fighters that you competed against that still stick in your mind?
Um, I mean, Kim Jae-young, you know what I mean? We
Hmm.
fought 3 times, and I think he's still fighting. That guy's that guy's a born warrior. He's still doing it, and he's tough. He was good. They were all good. The thing that impresses me the most is how far the Korean fighters have come. Because when I first started going over there, MMA in Korea was still in the Stone Age, literally. Very, 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 very at the beginning. Nobody really knew anything, and people just got better and better and better very fast. And it's the Korean when there's a Korean fighter in the UFC, they're good. They're hard nosed. They're tough. You're in for a fight.
You kind of delve into two of the questions that are coming up, which is Kim Jae Young. He is a guy that you fought multiple times in the past, and he is still active. He's actually a champion on in a regional promotion in Korea right now. What do you
Yeah.
remember most about your encounters with him?
Um, I just he was tough, man. He was. I just remember that for the weight class, he was a little bit short, but he was really thick and tough. So most guys that had that much of a height difference in that weight class, they would have tried to cut down and go to the weight class below. But just the simple fact that he did not, and he wanted to still fight against me 3 times in that same weight class. I mean, that spoke a lot to his character and his heart, his bravery as a fighter. Again, like I said, he's still fighting, and like you said, he's a champion. So I mean, he's a seasoned vet.
Yeah, he's a
And
tank.
it was always super cool. People, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but him and Lim Jae-suk came to train with us at American Top Team for a while, and it was cool, man. Like, we trained together. I lent them my car at the time, like, you know what I mean, in South Florida, and they trained. I think they were there for maybe 2-3 weeks, maybe more, So it was nice, man. It was cool.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's definitely cool. Now,
Yeah.
as a coach, what advice would you give him, a guy that's such a veteran, that's still fighting right now?
Kim J, I can't. He's been doing it. He probably knows the same stuff I know. We've been doing it at the same time. Like, he's I can't. I just say be careful and don't fight too long. But he knows it. He knows. He's been doing it so long. He's a professional now. He knows quite a bit too. So
Could you send him a message? He'll probably watch this because you're talking about him. So you send
Kim
him
Jae Young, what's up, bro, man? I just wanna tell you that you've come a long way, man, and congratulations on being a champion now. And that's it, man. Be safe, keep training. Us.
All right. The other part was, you talked about when you first got to Korea and you saw MMA as what it was,
Yeah.
and you said it was at the start. And when you were fighting the Korean fighters, did you feel like you entered a lot of the fights as the heavy favorite?
Yeah, I did. And but that's just the way it was then. That's also one of the reasons why, if you remember Spirit MC, they only made I fought at the heavyweight weight class. Basically, they had to make one kind of bigger weight class to not separate the fighters too much because they did not have enough fighters. So they had to kind of bring the fighters a little closer together. So that's what it was. And it's the like I said, they were a little bit behind at the time, but they learned real fast.
Yeah,
You know.
they did.
So
And I think even in Spirit MC, from the start of it to the end of it, it was just completely polar opposites of the level of fighters that came through that place.
I agree. There was all like one thing I noticed about the Korean fighters from the beginning and to the end. They were always very hungry to learn, no matter who. Because I trained with some Korean people at some gyms. They were always very hungry to learn, and they always had a ton of heart, like fighting spirit. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
yeah,
well, the Korean Zombie is probably the best example of that, right?
yeah, exactly.
Now, when you look at mixed martial arts, and you were there in 2004, and now you look at them from afar now, what do you think that they've improved the most at?
Um, just everything. The whole. I mean, obviously, grappling, and there's some very good grapplers coming out of Korea that don't do MMA, but just in like the BJJ circuit in gi and no gi, especially the smaller weight classes. But I think now the the training protocol is more established. I think, obviously in North America too, but before they didn't really know how to train. Now they've had they have guys that have experience to teach their younger guys. You know what I mean? At the beginning, they didn't. Even the older guy was just somebody, who like Choi Mube was the older guy, like the senior, but he was a guy from wrestling who didn't know MMA. You know what I mean? Now, and even though he still did very good. But now everybody, the gyms know how to train MMA right away. And I tell the same thing to the fighters over here in Canada. Like, you guys don't understand how lucky you are to be able to start from day one and do the right training. When I was training, we didn't know. We were it was hit or miss. You do a little bit of jiu-jitsu, a little bit of boxing, kickboxing, try to mix it together and not make mistakes, and that's it. Now, the game is so refined, the level and just the way that you teach certain fighters and make game plans with strategy, it's amazing. It's heads above what it was before.
Definitely. Are there any Korean fighters you pay attention to these days?
You know who I like right now is I forgot his name, the Iron Turtle.
Oh, Park Junyoung.
Yeah, not the last UFC this weekend, the one before.
Yeah.
He Phillips.
Yeah.
He's tough.
Yeah.
He's good. I like him. And then this other guy, I think Gunn, that's light heavyweights. He beat Sam Alvey this weekend.
Yeah, Taeun Jung. They're both part of Korean top team.
Oh yeah. That Korean top team was always tough. They were always very good. Yeah, well he's good too. I like his striking. Yeah, those guys are good. Obviously, Zombie's my boy. You know what I mean? He's always my favorite Korean fighter. But and then I'm glad to see Kan Kyo Hung is kind of still doing it, right?
Mhm.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're still doing it. There's a lot of up and coming kids, in the
I
regional scene, and yeah, I'm excited to see what's up in the future for a lot of those guys. Now, for yourself, you've made tremendous contribution to the history of mixed martial arts in Korea, and a lot of the journalists believe that if they created a MMA Hall of Fame in Korea, you're a shoe-in, like definitely you're in there.
That's nice.
Yeah, and they want to thank you, on behalf of the Korean mixed martial arts industry. They want to thank you. Are you proud of what you have accomplished and what you have contributed to Korean MMA?
Man, so proud, but like it, because it kind of happened for me when I went over there. I don't want to say overnight, but my first and second fight, people knew me, and it was kind of a novelty. Blah blah blah. Okay, it was cool. And then about 3 or 4 months after that, it went like my fame got skyrocketed over there, and I couldn't believe it. And I was talking to at the time the promoter for like the CEO of Spirit MC was a guy named Park Kyung-yeon. I don't know if you remember. Really really nice guy. And he said that's the power of media. That's what he said to me. And I mean, he's referring to the journalists, obviously, the websites as well, but the journalists and all types of media that cover the sport. It's all through that, so it's a symbiotic relationship. You can't have one without the other. MMA would be nothing without the reporters that cover it, people like you, who do a good job. So thank you to all of you as well.
Yeah, the journalists that actually covered the sport back then are still covering the sport right now.
Sure.
They're the old school journalists. They've been around since Pride.
I'm glad to hear it, man.
Yeah, it's great. Now, you have had 55 fights in your career. Could you list maybe the top 3 fights you remember the most, your best fights?
Whoa, there's a few. One of them would be my last fight in Pride against Kazuo Mizaki. That was tough because I had a torn bicep, and it was 2 fights in one night, so that was hard. You know what I mean? It was people don't understand too. Like now the weight class is 185 or 84 kilos. That weight class was 83 kilos. So 1 kilo makes a big difference when you're cutting that much weight. So it was really hard, and to have to fight 2 15-minute fights in one night was really really hard. So that fight was hard, and then my fight against Andrei Semenov again in Pride was really good. My fight against Amar Suluev was good. Obviously, my fight with Ninja. All 3 of my fights against Kim Jae-young. One fight, my first fight with Road FC when I fought I think Lee Yun-soo. I fought. Yeah, that was a tough fight as well. That was a good fight. I was a little older then, a little heavier, a little slower, but it was a hard fight. Yeah, and then I fought in this tournament in Hawaii a long time in 2004 called Super Brawl.
Yeah.
It was really, really hard. The fights are online. They're on. It was Super Brawl 30. It's on YouTube somewhere. I fought 2 fights in one night, but it was really hard. Any tournament like that is really tough.
You've been through a lot of tournaments and one night tournaments. In fact, like, do you when you hear fighters complaining about one fighting one time a night, you're just like, what are you doing? What are you talking about?
And they have no idea what it. When I won the Spirit MC belt, it was 3 fights in one night. Like, you know what I mean? 3. That is really, so you got to fight. You warm up, you fight fast, fight slow, whatever happens. You win, and you got to fight again. And like, half an hour, 40 minutes. And so you got to come down, then you got to come back up, you know? What if you're hurt? What if whatever, right? You win that, and then you come down, then you got to go back up and go fight one more time. Like, that's crazy. You know, they don't happen anymore because there's too many people get injured, I think. But back then, it's you know, that's, you know, there's not a lot of people who have done tournaments now, you know.
Yeah.
It was intense. It was like a marathon of fighting.
Yeah, it was really the definition of survival of the fittest in those moments.
Yes, that's exactly it.
How did you control that though? Like being able to fighting and that adrenaline, and then the dump, and then getting that adrenaline again.
You just do it. I mean, you gotta, like, let's say I just fought and then I go backstage. I stay warm. I get a blanket on. I don't want to lie down. I stay focused. I think the main thing is just your body's gonna cool down no matter what, because you waste energy if you just stay warm the whole time, right? So just put some clothes on, stay warm in terms of temperature, but just relax, watch the fight, stay focused, maybe rehydrate, put some ice if you got an injury. And then when they call you out for the second fight, you got to get back in the zone, right? Mentally, more than anything. Physically, I wouldn't really warm up again. You know what I mean? You don't really need to. And then you go out there and do it, right? And you got to remember, the pace is a little bit slower in tournaments, especially in the first round, because you might have to fight later. So, you know, it's that's how it is. And then you kind of lay it all on the line in the third fight, you know. But you got to remember, tournaments, basically, they tell a story. You know what I mean? So that's why it's a lot more interesting for the fans as well, right? So, but what happens is a lot of fighters, they'll say they want to do a tournament. They'll fight once, they'll win. And then they come down, they're like, okay, well, do I really want to do this again and maybe lose? I feel so good from winning. Well, maybe I hurt my back a little bit. You know what I mean? Some guys will fake an injury, or who knows, you know, but it's like that sometimes. So, and when that happens, it kind of takes away from the story, that story of the tournament that I told you, you know? So, yeah.
Well, I'm pretty sure you've seen that in the past, guys pulling out of tournaments in one night.
Yeah.
Now, with yourself, you know, speaking of tournaments, you know, you were a runner-up in one of the Pride tournaments. You know, do you have any regrets, you know, on how you approach things, you know, in some of the tournaments?
Sorry, I'm just gonna move my phone here. Not really. I mean, I always, you know what? I'll tell you right now. There's only, in all my fights, I trained as hard as I could with the knowledge that I had at the time. So there's no way I can regret it, except for the last fight, my last fight against Melvin Manhoff. That fight, I didn't train that hard. I took it basically mostly for the money. And, you know, it's, I mean, in retrospect now, I probably should not have taken the fight, but, you know, I wanted to do it anyways. You know, so I have regrets, but I don't, because, I mean, there's no point regretting it, you know. Losing that fight in the way that I did kind of really, it reaffirmed the fact that, hey, it's time to hang it up, you know. So, you know, yeah.
All right. Now, you know, the biggest fight I believe that Korean fans have embedded in their minds is the one with you versus Chu Sung-un. You know, it was the craziest sensation.
You know, what? Sorry, I forgot about that fight. I got to go back. I do have regrets about that fight. Not in the results, because, hey, man, I don't want to take anything away from him. He won fair and square. But in my response, because, and again, I don't want to sound like I'm making an excuse, but I got thumbed in the eye in the in the middle of the fight. If you watch, you can see me blinking, and I kept on fighting. And what I should have done is called a timeout, because I lost all sense of distance in the fight, and I couldn't tell if he was near or far. You know what I mean? So that's how he caught me. But hey, man, that's you know what I mean? That's my responsibility. So if I were to do it again, I would call a timeout and maybe try to fix my eye a little bit. But it is what it is. You know what I mean? He won fair and square. You know, he you know, that's what it is, right?
Was there a lot of emotion going into that fight?
Not really. Not for me, anyways. I don't know. It was just a regular fight. After, maybe a little bit, but no more than usual. I think people tried to make that. You know, um, and I understand, like, the whole point of the media wants to. They want to hype up a fight in some kind of angle that there's bad blood between two fighters, but I don't. There's never been any bad blood between myself and True Song One. You know what I mean? We barely know each other. I certainly respect him as a fighter and as a person from what I've seen. And I would like to think that he does the same with me. But yeah, to get back to your question, no, there was no bad blood. I think people tried to kind of pit us against each other as maybe two half Korean fighters who were coming to fight. But I mean, we were just fighters trying to compete and make a living. That's it.
So you think the media kind of created this like animosity to
I,
build up the
I
fight?
a little bit,
Yeah.
and yeah,
And that's what media does, though.
they do.
Yeah,
But you know what? You needed that.
yeah.
I understand the angle, man. Like, you got to sell it. Without the public's attention, there's no, you can't sell the fight. So I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that's what it is.
All right,
So,
let's get into your younger brother, Julian.
okay.
He is so popular in Korea
Yep.
now. He's all over TV. His YouTube
Yep.
page is crazy. His
Yep.
channel.
Yep.
When you see your brother, what comes to mind, man? How successful he has become in Korea.
Man, he did it, man. He's a superstar over there. And it's even crazier when you think that when he did it without any experience in that. I mean, he went over there at the beginning. People just knew him as my brother. You know what I mean? It's not like he, you see a lot of people. They took acting classes when they were young, or they were like child stars or child actors or models. He worked in an office in Vancouver before. So it's to come from one world and go to another completely different world, not just a completely different world, but a completely different job. It's an accomplishment that a lot of people would not be able to do. You know.
I'm pretty sure you had your opportunities to become, I guess, in the entertainment industry. Was it just something that was not for you?
Yeah. I think when I was, I got another call. Hold on a sec. Hold on.
Yeah.
Okay, you good? You can see me?
Yeah, it's good.
I should get rid of it. I lost you on camera though, just so you know.
All right, I can see you.
Okay, I'm good. I'm good. For me, all that stuff, it came from the fighting. You know what I mean? So I always had that fighting. How can I explain it? It came from the fighting, and it was always because of that. And then when I stopped fighting, it just didn't feel like, I don't know. It didn't feel the same. You know what I mean? When I wasn't competing. So I mean, it's not to say that if somebody in Korea wants to offer me something else, I would not take it. Like anything to do with with entertainment. But that's just how it is.
Do you think if Julian focused on MMA, do you think he would have been a really good fighter? Do you think he would have maybe possibly been able to get to the UFC?
Back then or now?
Yeah, even back then, when he was younger, if he focused
Back
more on that.
Yeah, back then, yeah, definitely. Now it's a little different, right? You got to be realistic about it. He's older, right? He's got a comfortable life, but back then, for sure, it's you got to remember there's a lot more competition now, right? Like we just talked about it, the level has gone way up, right? It's very hard for someone to start to just jump in kind of cold, but he has been doing MMA for like off and on, kind of all three of us. We have a middle brother too, Tommy, who was a boxing fighter and coach now. You know what I mean? All three of us were training and fighting in MMA. And if he would have done it before, he could have done it, especially with his size. I mean, he was so long and huge. He could have been maybe like some kind of Israel Adesanya or something. You never know.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah, he definitely has the physical traits to, to be
Yeah,
a fighter. And
yeah.
there was a poll that, the entertainment industry did about fighters, and Julian became he was number one. They said that he would be the best fighter and he would beat every other entertainer. Do you think any other entertainer would give him a run for his money?
I don't think. I don't think. I mean, I don't. I would have to see who they were, but I don't think so. Unless they're like there are other fighters, but I doubt it. If they're just regular people, man, probably not. Because like I said, he's been an athlete his whole life, and just from being my brother, he's been exposed to MMA. You know, just through osmosis. Just from being around, and he's absorbed it, and he's trained before. So it's I don't think it's a far reach. That he's probably the toughest guy over there in Korea right now.
Yeah, I agree. He'd probably whoop everybody in the
Yeah,
entertainment industry just by being, seeing some of the footage of him. Now, Super Korean, that moniker. Did
yeah.
did you embrace it from the start, or was it something that you kind of learned to love?
You know how I made up that nickname, right?
Hmm.
When I was in Korea with Julian, we had a contest in a sauna, and we were followed by remember XTM,
Yes, of course.
followed by a camera crew from XTM, and we had a contest in the sauna over who could stay the longest. And I stayed the longest, and then when I came out, I went to the camera. I go, I'm not Korean. I'm a Super Korean, and they ran with it. They kept it. So
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. That's a very good ad right
I,
there.
yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome, and I mean it seemed to be very fitting, especially at the time and with the sport that I was doing, you know, and yeah, I think also what I didn't like about Korea or Korean people at the time is that I could tell that there was a little bit of like for Korean fighters as a whole, they were a little bit intimidated to fight outside or if people are not from Korea,
Hmm.
So I really wanted to toughen them up. Like I wanted to say, like, man, you guys got it in you. Like, be a Super Korean. I wanted to empower the people a little bit. You know.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Now, the big question is, are you completely retired? Would any offer, if let's say a Korean promotion offered you to fight, would you take that fight?
I would do a grappling match. I don't know if I would
Mhm.
do a MMA match. Yeah,
Okay. So I
yeah.
think there's some big grappling tournament like Spider. You probably heard of that.
Sure.
Yeah,
Respect.
yeah.
Awesome.
Super
Yeah,
fight. Maybe a super fight over there at Spider.
love to do it.
All
Yeah,
right.
I still do all the time, and I teach. That's I stopped sparring obviously because when you get older, you don't want to get hit in the head too much. But jujitsu is one of the things that I kind of started to fall in love with again. Uh, so yeah, I would love to do that.
All right, one last thing, a message to the Korean fans, man. I'm pretty sure they really enjoyed this interview. What would you like to say to everybody out there?
I want to tell them that I never forgot about anybody in Korea or for all the support that they all gave me. You know, um, this is a journey that started a long time ago. And even though now I'm in a different country, it doesn't feel like the journey is over, especially nowadays with the power of social media, and people like yourself who are committed to kind of to keeping the MMA alive and things like that, right? So it's again, thank you to everybody out there that supported me and that's still supporting me. And it's like I said, it's not the end of the journey, but a continuation.
Would you be open to having Korean fighters fly over to Vancouver and trade with you?
Oh, I would love to. Man, this is what I do.
Mm.
This is what I do. This is all I do all day, every day. I train fighters. I train myself. I follow MMA online. I watch videos. Like this is what I love. And to get a chance to do that with up and coming guys from Korea, man, I would love that. That would be that'd be very special to me.